Lily stood at the edge of the Brooklyn Bridge that cold November night, with tears frozen on her cheeks and her phone displaying a message. She had typed but never sent that read goodbye to everyone I love. The wind pushed against her white coat as she gripped the cold metal railing, and 25 years of silence pressed down on her like an ocean, because being deaf in a hearing world had finally broken something inside her that she thought could never be fixed. She closed her eyes and leaned forward just an inch when suddenly a hand grabbed her shoulder and spun her around, and she found herself staring into the most concerned brown eyes she had ever seen, belonging to a tall black man whose mouth was moving rapidly, but she could not hear a single word. He looked terrified and kept pointing at her and then at the bridge and back at her, and his hands were shaking as he tried to communicate something urgent, and Lily just stared at him, feeling embarrassed and angry that even her final moment of peace was being interrupted by someone who could not understand that some silences were too loud to bear. The man, whose name was Dante, pulled out his phone with trembling fingers and typed quickly before showing her the screen that read, "Do not do this, and whatever you are going through, I promise it can get better, and I know I am a stranger, but I cannot let you go without trying to help." Lily read the words, and something about the way this stranger cared enough to type them made her legs give out, and she collapsed right there on the bridge walkway and started sobbing so hard her whole body shook, and Dante sat down next to her in his dark jeans and leather jacket, not caring about the cold concrete, and just stayed there with his hand gently on her back while she cried out years of loneliness and frustration. He did not know she was deaf yet, and she did not know that he was a singer who had just lost his record deal that same day and was walking the bridge to clear his own dark thoughts, and she definitely did not know that this moment would change both their lives forever. After what felt like hours, Lily finally looked up and signed to him, "I am deaf, and I cannot hear you, but thank you for stopping." And Dante's eyes widened in understanding, and he immediately started typing on his phone again and showed her, "I am Dante, and I do not know sign language, but I will learn if you give me a chance to be your friend, because nobody should feel this alone." That night, Dante walked Lily home to her tiny apartment in Queens, and they communicated through his phone notes and her sign language that he tried to copy with clumsy fingers that made her smile despite everything. He learned that Lily had been deaf since birth and worked as a graphic designer from home, and had exactly 2 friends who were both hearing and always seemed too busy for her, and her last relationship ended because the guy said dating a deaf girl was too much work. Dante told her through typed messages that he was a singer and songwriter who had just been dropped by his label after 3 years of trying to make it big, and his family back in Chicago thought he was wasting his life chasing dreams instead of getting a real job, and he was 28 and felt like a failure. They sat in her small kitchen drinking coffee until sunrise, and something unspoken passed between them, and understanding that pain knows no language, and sometimes the people who save us are the ones who need saving too. When Dante finally left that morning, he typed one more message that read, "I will come back tomorrow if that is okay, and I want to know more about your world," and Lily nodded yes and watched him leave, and felt something she had not felt in months, which was hope. Dante showed up the next day with a notebook and a determined look on his face, and he had spent the entire night watching sign language videos online and learning basic signs. Lily opened her door, and he immediately signed, "Hello, my name is Dante." And his signs were rough and grammatically wrong, but the effort made her heart swell, and she signed back slowly, "Hello, my name is Lily, and it is nice to meet you properly." They spent that whole day together, with Dante practicing signs and Lily teaching him patiently and correcting his hand shapes, and they laughed when he accidentally signed, "I am a purple elephant," instead of "I am happy to be here." For the first time in her life, Lily did not feel like her deafness was a burden, because here was someone who chose to enter her silent world instead of expecting her to struggle in his loud one. Dante was amazed by how expressive sign language was, and how Lily's face and body became part of the conversation and how much he had been missing by only using his voice, and he found himself falling into a comfortable rhythm with her that felt more natural than any conversation he had ever had. As days turned into weeks, they became inseparable, and Dante came over every morning before his evening shift at a restaurant, and they would practice signing and watch movies with captions and cook meals together in comfortable silence that was not really silent at all because their hands never stopped talking. 1 month after they met, Dante showed up at Lily's door with his guitar and a nervous expression, and he signed, "Can I show you something?" And Lily nodded curiously and sat on her couch. Dante sat across from her and started playing his guitar and singing, and Lily watched his fingers move on the strings and his mouth form words she could not hear, and his whole body sway with emotion, and even though she heard nothing, she felt everything. She saw passion in every movement and pain in how his eyes closed during certain parts and hope in how he smiled at the end, and when he finished, he looked at her anxiously and signed, "Did you feel it?" Lily had tears running down her face and she signed, "It was the most beautiful thing I have ever seen, and I wish I could hear your voice." And Dante's face fell a little, but then he got an idea, and he took her hand and placed it gently on his throat and started singing again. Lily gasped because she could feel the vibrations of his voice humming through her palm and into her arm and straight to her heart. And it was not the same as hearing, but it was something, and it was wonderful. She felt the low notes rumble and the high notes flutter and the power of his voice shake through his skin, and she understood in that moment why people loved music, because it was not just sound but feeling and emotion and soul made physical. Their friendship deepened into something neither of them dared to name, because they were both still healing and both still scared. Lily found herself thinking about Dante constantly, and the way his smile reached his eyes and how patient he was when she had to repeat signs, and how he always made sure she could see his face in good lighting, and how he learned to stomp on the floor to get her attention instead of calling her name. Dante caught himself staring at Lily when she concentrated on her design work, and how graceful her hands were when she signed, and how her green eyes seemed to see right through him, and how she laughed with her whole body, and how being with her felt like coming home. One February evening, they were cooking dinner together and dancing around the kitchen to music Lily could not hear, but followed by watching Dante's movements, and suddenly Dante spun her around and they ended up face to face just inches apart, and time stopped. Dante slowly signed, "You are so beautiful," and Lily's breath caught and she signed, "You make me feel seen," and Dante leaned in carefully, giving her every chance to pull away, and when their lips met, it felt like the world shifted on its axis. They kissed slow and sweet in that tiny kitchen with pasta boiling on the stove and the rest of the world fading away, and when they finally pulled apart, Dante signed, "I am falling in love with you," and Lily signed, "I already fell." Being in love opened a new chapter for both of them, but it also brought challenges they had not expected. Dante's mother called him one night, and he made the mistake of mentioning Lily, and his mother's voice went sharp with concern as she asked, "Is she the deaf girl you mentioned, and why are you getting involved with someone like that? And does she expect you to take care of her forever?" And Dante felt anger rise in his chest as he defended Lily and told his mother that Lily was independent and talented and amazing, and his mother sighed and said, "I just want you to think practically about your future." Dante did not tell Lily about that conversation, but it weighed on him, and he started noticing the stares they got when they were out in public signing to each other, and the impatient looks from waiters when Lily could not hear them, and the way some of his friends acted uncomfortable around her. Lily noticed his tension and finally confronted him one evening and signed, "What is wrong? And you have been distant." And Dante struggled with whether to tell her the truth, but their relationship was built on honesty, so he explained everything. Lily's face went through shock, then hurt, then resignation, and she signed, "I am used to this, and people always think I am less because I cannot hear, and maybe your mother is right, and you deserve someone easier." And Dante immediately grabbed her hands to stop her signing and said out loud while signing, I do not want easier, and I want you and anyone who cannot see how incredible. You are as blind, and that includes my own family. Lily's past came crashing back one afternoon when her ex-boyfriend, Travis, showed up at her apartment unannounced, and Dante opened the door since he practically lived there now. Travis was a white guy in an expensive suit, and he looked Dante up and down with barely concealed disgust and said, "Where is Lily, and who are you?" And Dante felt his jaw tighten as he signed and spoke. Simultaneously, "I am her boyfriend, and she is working right now." Travis pushed past him rudely and walked into the apartment, and Lily looked up from her computer with shock and signed, "Travis, what are you doing here?" And Travis started talking rapidly without facing her, so she could not read his lips, and Dante had to tap him and sign, "You need to face her so she can understand you." Travis rolled his eyes and turned to Lily and spoke slowly and deliberately like she was stupid and said, "I came to check on you because I heard through mutual friends that you were dating someone, and I wanted to make sure you were not being taken advantage of." And Lily felt humiliation burn through her, and she signed, "I am fine, and you need to leave." Travis ignored her and turned to Dante and said, "Look man, I dated her for 2 years, so I know how vulnerable she is, and deaf girls can be easy targets, and I just want to make sure your intentions are good." And Dante saw red and signed and spoke, "At the same time, get out of her apartment now, or I will throw you out. And Lily is not vulnerable, and she is strong and capable, and you are the one who treated her like she was less than human." The confrontation ended with Travis leaving, but not before saying, "Lily, you are making a mistake, and he will leave when things get too hard, just like everyone does." After Travis left, Lily broke down and told Dante through tears and frantic signs about how Travis used to get frustrated when she did not understand him, and how he refused to learn sign language, and how he told her she was lucky he put up with her disability, and how he made her feel like a charity case instead of a girlfriend. Dante held her tight and felt his heart break for what she had endured, and he signed, "You are not a charity case, and you are not lucky to be with me, and I am lucky to be with you, and anyone who made you feel less than amazing is an idiot." Lily cried into his chest and felt the vibration of his heartbeat and realized that this was what love was supposed to feel like, and safe and equal and full of respect. They stayed wrapped in each other for hours, and Dante made a decision right then that he was going to show Lily and the world just how incredible she was, and he had an idea that was crazy but might just work. Dante had been writing songs his whole life, but after meeting Lily, his music changed and became deeper and more emotional and full of new understanding. He wrote a song called "Silent Love" that was about loving Lily and about communication beyond words, and about seeing someone truly for who they are, and the lyrics were powerful and the melody was haunting. He decided to make a music video for it and asked Lily if she would be in it and help him film it, and Lily was hesitant at first, but agreed because she trusted him. They used Lily's phone and Dante's friend's camera and spent weeks filming around New York, and the video showed their real story and their real signs and their real love, and Dante singing with Lily's hand on his throat, and both of them dancing and laughing and living. When they finished editing, Dante uploaded it to YouTube with captions in English and descriptions in both English and sign language, and he did not expect anything to happen, but he hoped maybe a few people would see it and understand what they had. 3 days later, the video had 1 million views, and Dante's phone would not stop buzzing with messages and comments and interview requests, and Lily was in shock and signed, "What is happening?" And Dante just laughed and signed, "I think people needed to see what real love looks like." The video went viral in a way neither of them could have imagined, and suddenly Dante was getting calls from record labels again, and this time they wanted the real, authentic him and not some manufactured version. Lily's graphic design business exploded because people saw her work in the video credits and wanted to hire the talented deaf designer, and news outlets were asking to interview them, both, and deaf community advocates were praising them for representation and awareness. But with fame came criticism, and trolls online said terrible things, and that Dante was using Lily for views, and that Lily was holding Dante back, and that interracial relationships were wrong, and that deaf people should not be in videos because it made viewers uncomfortable, and both of them had to learn to ignore the hate and focus on the love and support that far outweighed the negativity. One morning, Dante got a call from a major morning show asking them to perform live, and he was terrified but excited, and he asked, "Lily, will you come with me and stand on that stage and show everyone what we have?" And Lily signed, "I'm scared, but yes, because we do this together." The morning show appearance was scheduled for May, and Dante spent weeks practicing and preparing, and Lily helped him choreograph the performance to include sign language throughout. The night before the show, Dante could not sleep because he kept thinking about his mother, who still had not fully accepted his relationship, and his father, who barely spoke to him anymore, and his old fears of failure creeping back in. Lily woke up and saw him sitting by the window, and she walked over and placed her hand on his shoulder and signed, "What is wrong, my love?" And Dante signed, "What if I mess up? And what if people hate it? And what if I am not good enough?" Lily took his face in her hands and signed, "You are more than good enough, and tomorrow is not about being perfect, and it is about being real and showing people that love has no language and no color and no limits, and I believe in you." Dante kissed her deeply and signed, "I do not know what I did to deserve you." And Lily signed, "You saw me when I was invisible, and you chose to learn my language, and you loved me when I could not love myself, and that is what you did to deserve me." The morning show performance was electric, and Dante sang Silent Love while Lily stood beside him signing every word, and their chemistry was undeniable. And the audience was crying and cheering. And when they finished, the host had tears in her eyes. During the interview portion, Dante spoke while signing, and Lily signed her answers, which were interpreted. And they told their story honestly, and including the bridge and the struggles and the love and the hope. The host asked Lily what she wanted people to know about being deaf, and Lily signed through the interpreter that being deaf is not a tragedy, and it is just a different way of experiencing the world, and deaf people can do anything except hear, and we do not need pity, but we do need access and understanding and respect. Dante added that loving Lily taught him that he had been listening with only his ears his whole life, and when he started watching and feeling and truly paying attention, he discovered a richness to communication he never knew existed. The interview ended with the host announcing that a major streaming service wanted to do a documentary about their story, and that the record label was offering Dante a new contract, and that their love story was inspiring millions, and both Dante and Lily were overwhelmed with gratitude. Success brought opportunities, but also tough decisions, and Dante's family reached out after seeing the show, and his mother apologized through tears on a video call, and said she was wrong, and she had let her own fears and prejudices cloud her judgment, and she wanted to meet Lily properly. Dante was cautious but hopeful, and he arranged for his parents to visit New York, and the meeting was awkward at first because his mother did not know how to communicate with Lily and kept apologizing nervously. Lily was gracious and patient, and she taught Dante's mother some basic signs, and they looked through photo albums together, and by the end of the weekend, Dante's mother pulled him aside and signed "Thank you" clumsily, and said out loud, "She is wonderful, and I am sorry I did not trust your heart." Lily and Dante's mother hugged and both cried, and Dante felt a weight lift off his shoulders because having his family's blessing meant more than he wanted to admit. His father was quieter but shook Lily's hand firmly and told Dante, "I am proud of you, son, and not just for the music, but for finding real love and fighting for it." The documentary filmed over 6 months and showed the reality of their relationship, and both the beautiful moments and the hard ones. It showed Lily struggling on days when the world felt too inaccessible, and Dante getting frustrated when he could not communicate something complex quickly, and both of them working through misunderstandings and cultural differences and outside pressures. It showed their friends and family learning sign language and their community embracing them, and young deaf kids writing letters to Lily saying she gave them hope, and young black kids writing to Dante saying he inspired them to pursue music. The documentary included interviews with deaf advocates and relationship experts and musicians, and it became a cultural phenomenon that sparked conversations about disability and race and love and representation. When it premiered, both Lily and Dante watched it together in their now shared apartment and held hands and cried because seeing their journey reflected back at them made them realize how far they had come from that night on the bridge. 2 years after they met, Dante planned a surprise that took months to coordinate, and he had been secretly taking advanced sign language classes and working with the deaf community and learning about deaf culture and history. On the anniversary of the night they met, he took Lily back to the Brooklyn Bridge at sunset, and she was confused and signed, "Why are we here, and this place holds bad memories?" Dante smiled and signed, "This place is where my life truly began, and where I met the person who saved me, and where our story started, and I want to change the memory of this place forever." He got down on one knee right there on the bridge and pulled out a ring and signed in perfect fluid, "ASL Lily Elizabeth. Shun, you are my heart and my home and my best friend, and you taught me that silence is not empty but full of love and meaning, and I want to spend the rest of my life learning your language and loving you and building a life together, and will you marry me?" Lily gasped and covered her mouth and nodded yes frantically before signing yes and 1,000 times yes. "And I love you more than I have words in any language to express." They kissed as the sun set over the city, and people walking by stopped and cheered, and a photographer Lily did not know was there captured the moment, and later they learned Dante had arranged it all. The wedding was a beautiful fusion of both their worlds, and held in a garden in Brooklyn with an ASL interpreter and voice interpreter, so everyone could understand everything. Lily wore a simple white dress, and Dante wore a black suit, and both signed their vows while speaking them, and there was not a dry eye in the audience. Dante's vows included, "I promise to always face you when I speak, and to keep learning and growing in your language, and to be your voice when you need one, and your silence when you need peace, and to love every part of you, including the parts you sometimes struggle to love yourself." Lily's vows included, "I promise to feel the vibration of your voice and your heart for the rest of my life, and to be patient when our worlds collide, and to teach our future children both languages, and to never stop fighting for our love and for our community, and to remind you every day that you are enough exactly as you are." They danced at the reception, and not to music Lily could hear, but to music she felt through the vibrations in the floor and through Dante's body pressed close to hers, and through the joy radiating from everyone around them. 5 years after that night on the bridge, Lily and Dante had built a life beyond their wildest dreams. Dante had released 3 albums, and all were successful, and he had become known for incorporating sign language into all his performances and for advocating for accessibility in the music industry. Lily's graphic design company had grown, and she now employed 5 people, and including 2 deaf designers, and she specialized in creating accessible content for brands and organizations. They had started a nonprofit together called Silent Voices that provided free sign language classes and advocated for deaf rights and funded scholarships for deaf students, and the organization had helped thousands of people. They bought a house with big windows that let in lots of natural light so Lily could always see clearly, and they had adopted a hearing dog named Jazz who alerted Lily to sounds and was trained to help her, and who Dante spoiled constantly. Their home was filled with laughter and love and friends from both the hearing and deaf communities, and their life was not perfect, but it was theirs, and it was beautiful. One autumn evening, Lily found out she was pregnant, and she was terrified about how to tell Dante because they had talked about kids, but not seriously planned for them yet. She decided to surprise him by teaching him a new sign, and when he came home from the studio she signed, "We need to learn a new word," and he signed, "Okay, what word?" And she fingerspelled B-A-B-Y and then showed him the sign for baby, and Dante looked confused until she took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. His eyes went wide and his mouth fell open, and he signed, "Are you serious? And are we having a baby?" And Lily nodded with tears streaming down her face, and Dante picked her up and spun her round and kissed her and signed, "We are going to be parents, and our child is going to be so loved and so lucky." They both cried happy tears and talked late into the night about their hopes and fears, and about raising a child in both worlds, and about teaching their baby sign language from birth, whether the child was deaf or hearing, and about creating a home full of acceptance and understanding. Their daughter was born the following summer, and they named her Hope because that was what they had given each other, and what they wanted to give the world. Hope was born hearing, but Lily and Dante raised her bilingual in both English and ASL, and by age 2 she was fluently signing and speaking and switching between both languages easily. She grew up seeing her mother's deafness not as a disability, but as a beautiful part of who she was, and she grew up seeing her parents' interracial marriage not as unusual, but as normal and full of love. Hope became a bridge herself, and between communities and between worlds, and she was confident and kind and proud of her family. Lily and Dante watched her grow with awe and gratitude, and they often talked about how different their lives could have been if Dante had not stopped that night on the bridge, and if Lily had not given Hope a chance, and if they had not fought for their love against all odds. The documentary had a 10-year anniversary special, and the producers interviewed Lily and Dante again, and this time with Hope playing in the background. They asked what advice they would give to people facing similar challenges, and Dante said love is not about finding someone perfect, but about finding someone worth fighting for, and worth growing for, and worth learning a whole new language for, whether that language is a SL, or the language of another culture, or the language of someone's heart. Lily signed through the interpreter that she would tell her younger self that being deaf does not make you broken, and that the right person will not see your differences as obstacles, but as opportunities to love you more fully, and that you should never settle for someone who makes you feel like you are too much work. They both agreed that their relationship succeeded because they chose each other every single day, and because they communicated openly, and because they never stopped trying to understand each other's worlds, and because they built something together that was stronger than either of them alone. On their 10-year wedding anniversary, Dante and Lily returned to the Brooklyn Bridge one more time, and this time with Hope holding both their hands. They stood at the exact spot where they had met and where Dante had proposed, and they looked out at the city that had witnessed their entire journey. Dante signed to Lily, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if I had not been walking here that night?" And Lily signed back, "Every single day, and I thank God or fate or the universe that you were." And Dante signed, "I was broken that night too, and I was lost and angry, and I thought my dreams were dead, and you saved me just as much as I saved you." They stood together as the sun set and painting the sky in oranges and pinks, and Hope asked why they were standing there so long, and Lily knelt down and signed to her daughter, "This is where Daddy and I found each other when we were both very sad. And this place reminds us that even in our darkest moments, something beautiful can happen if we just hold on a little longer. Hope hugged both her parents and said, "I am glad you held on," and Dante and Lily looked at each other with tears in their eyes because they were glad too, and so very grateful for the life they had built from that one moment of connection on a cold November night when silence ended and love began.